What's up, y'all? Welcome to Tales and Tangents. I'm your girl, Indigo Aura. Thank you for watching the channel. I ask that you like and subscribe if you are not already subscribed to the channel. I don't have on my usual purple wig. It's because I'm traveling. I've been doing a lot this summer and I just haven't had the chance to record content, but I really want to get something out to you guys. And I just forgot my wig tonight, y'all. I just forgot it. But I'm recording at least, 4 to 6 stories. So y'all gonna have just the real Indigo, the real big hair Indigo, the natural big hair Indigo. And I'll be back with my purple wig in the next few videos. All right. So let's get into it. We're going to get into some drama-filled tangents on these next few stories. I also received, so thank you guys. Thank you guys who have been emailing your stories. Thank you guys who have been just emailing me feedback. Some of it is a little weird, but it's fine. Feedback is feedback. And it's heard. Some of you are saying that you want the videos to be longer. You love the videos, but they're so short. The stories are so short. So I'm working on that. I'm going to be putting out some, multiple stories, videos with multiple stories. If they're shorter and if they're longer stories, that'll work out as well. So thank you for sending feedback and for sending stories. Keep supporting and showing me love. I appreciate you guys. I'm just growing this channel. I already don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it, and I'm going to keep doing it until it works out. So if you're on this journey with me, all right? So let's get into today's stories. So today's stories are some drama stories, some relationship and family drama. One story is about a guy who proposed to the submitter, the person who submitted the story, and his girlfriend on the same day. So a guy who proposed to 2 girls on the same day. And another story about best friends of 20 years sleeping with your husband. Okay, the other story is about, it's called My Best Friend of 20 Years Was Sleeping with My Husband. Okay, so that's just drama. All right, so let's get into it. So I'm gonna start with my best friend of 20 years was sleeping with my husband. Okay, and the way I found out was worse. So let's see, because that's crazy, and I just want to start by saying I don't wish that on anybody, because that's crazy. Like, I consider myself to be very wise and to be, very much in control of myself, my thoughts, all that good shit, a well-rounded person. But certain things, certain situations, it's like, damn. Whew. As wise as I am, and I'm very good at giving people the best advice on how to remain elevated, you know what I'm saying, and remain high frequency. Make sure that everything they're doing is from a perspective of a person who is at the highest frequency. Okay, what you would do as your higher self. I'm very big on that. Okay, I'm Indigo Aura. That's what I'm all about. But man, when we get to talking about this trifling ass that be going down with people, let me tell you something. I'm ignorant. That I say that I would do, my first initial thought reaction is straight pure ignorance. But that's the thing. My awareness of that is where the power is. My awareness of that I need to process. That I'm going to have a bunch of thoughts and a bunch of things going on my head that are just that, processing. Not actual action items. Not things to act on. It doesn't trigger any actions. It's just all thoughts. It's just all, that's absolutely fine. To those who go off with the mind on certain things, as long as in person you're composed, and you might just be like with a look of shock, having all these thoughts, but as long as you don't act on them, there are some people who may call themselves prepared for this stuff, and then when they happen, they lose control and act in the wildest ways. Okay, so yeah, this is gonna be some drama. All right, so let's get into it. Y'all know I read this in the first person like it's me, but it's not me. My best friend of 20 years was sleeping with my husband, and the way I found out was worse. Bitch. Okay? So let's get into it. Priya and I met on the first day of secondary school. We were 11 years old, and we were both wearing the same trainers. She pointed at my feet and said, "Great minds." And we were friends from that moment. For 20 years, she was the person I called first. When I got the job, when I lost a baby, when my father died, when I met Marcus, she was the one who told me he was the one before I admitted it to myself. She was my maid of honor. She was also sleeping with my husband for 2 years before I found out. And the way I found out was not through a message I wasn't supposed to see or a confession from a guilty conscience. I found out because she told me herself at my birthday dinner in front of 8 people. The fuck? What? Wait, what? Wow. All right. Let's get into this. What? All right. So, the friendship. I want to spend a moment on the friendship because I think it matters. Well, you thought it mattered. Shit, apparently it didn't, girl. 20 years is not a small thing. Priya was not a superficial friend who occupied the edges of my life. She was central to it. She knew everything about me. My fears, my resentments, the things I was ashamed of, the marriage stuff I couldn't say to my mother. The marriage stuff I couldn't say to my mother. She had held my hand through both miscarriages, and she had even driven through the night when my father had his stroke. She was also, it must be said, a person who had always struggled with the difference between wanting something and taking it. Okay? I can see this clearly now. At the time, I interpreted it as a passion, as the kind of appetite for life that I found energizing to be around. In retrospect, I was confusing vitality with carelessness. Marcus and Priya had always gotten along. This had been for years a source of uncomplicated happiness to me. My husband and best friend liked each other. How fortunate. I just want to say, okay, sidebar. Your husband and your best friend, or your wife and your best friend, there should be a healthy amount of hate. There should be some hate. But if it's oh no, they love you, if they love them, be a little suspicious. If it's a him, he like her. If it's a she like him. It should be a healthy amount of hate. The hate wherein is, if I'm your girlfriend, you my sister, I'ma hate your ass when you piss her off. I'ma hate your ass when, things aren't going right. So it's a healthy amount of regular hate. And a healthy relationship, there's ups and downs. So I'm going to sometimes be like, he ain't shit, when it's really just because he ain't been taking out the trash or doing whatever that's been bugging you for the last few months. But I'm going to feel like he need to step it up. It's not going to always be he's perfect, because no one is, and vice versa. If it was the woman and man, there's always some instances where your boy is like, oh, come on, man, she could do it, backing you up, because they are your person, not the other way around. You know what I'm saying? They're on your support team. So with them looking out for your interest, there should be some time where they're just like, so to me, that's the first thing. So let's get back into it. So my 36th birthday, at a restaurant I loved, a table of 8, People I was genuinely happy to see, like the 8 closest people to her. Marcus was across the table from me. Priya was 3 seats to my left, and it was a good evening. The kind that feels expansive and warm. The feeling of being surrounded by people you know and love. We were between the main course and dessert. Someone had made a toast. I was laughing at something. And then Priya said, into the gap of the conversation, loudly enough for the whole table to hear, I need to say something. I've needed to say it for a long time. I'm in love with Marcus, and we've been seeing each other for 2 years, and I can't keep pretending. It was dead silence. Like, it's just dead silence. The table went completely still, not gradually quiet of like a gathering where someone starts to speak and everybody quiets down. It was instant silence. I looked at Marcus. He was looking at the table, and I understood everything in approximately 4 seconds. Ooh. So she looking at him, and he just like this. And he just doing like one of these. Trying not to make eye contact. Stupid as hell. So the table would have been flipped. You know how I say I do things. I would say I would do things that I wouldn't do, but I might have flipped the table. Like, I might. Because, like, everybody there, all 8 people that are there for my birthday, know that you are my husband, and this bitch just came out and said, y'all been together for 2 years. I think flipping a table is, like, granted for me. So I think I would have really genuinely flipped that table. Aware of that. Flip the table. And then we'll be taking it from there. All right, so let's just see where she went with this. I have had a great deal of time to think about why Priya chose to tell me that way in public at my birthday in front of our mutual friends. The most charitable interpretation is that she had reached a point of such internal pressure that she couldn't manage the secret. She couldn't manage the secret any longer, and her judgment failed her completely. That it was an implosion, not a weapon. I do not hold the most charitable interpretation. What I believe, having known Priya for 20 years, is that she told me that way because a private confession would have given me control of the narrative. A private conversation would have meant I heard it, I processed it, and then I decided who knew, when, and how. What she did at the dinner table, took that control away from me entirely. I could not react privately. I could not take time. I was stripped of the dignity of processing my own betrayal on my own terms in front of witnesses who would carry their own version of the moment. She had always struggled with the difference between wanting something and taking it. What she took at that dinner was the last thing she should have. Marcus and I separated. The process was more civil than I expected, which I attribute partially to his guilt and partially to our mutual exhaustion of the situation. I will not claim the separation was straightforward or that there were not nights that were very dark. There were. The story has an aftermath that took years to move through. I have not spoken to Priya since the night of the birthday dinner. She sent messages in the weeks after. She sent a letter at Christmas. I read it once and filed it. Our mutual friends largely chose sides, which I had expected, which was painful in a way those things are. A small number held both relationships, which is their right, though it required a negotiation of what those friendships looked like. I am 3 years from that birthday dinner. I am by most measures all right. I am more all right than I expected to be at the time. I think about Priya sometimes, not with warmth, not yet. Maybe not ever, but with the strange intimacy you carry for people who you knew for 20 years and knew your whole self and decided what they decided anyway. I don't understand that sentence. So, whatever. We were 11 years old and we were both wearing the same trainers. We were going to be friends for life. And one version of things, we still are. I live in a different version. She definitely does live in a different version, because in this actual reality, she was never your friend. She was never your friend. You know, some people like her who, like you said, you always noticed that she had a problem with wanting things and then just taking them. They don't have friendships. They just see people as conveniences to get what they want, period. You know, and people like that are actually weak and they don't like to be alone. They don't like to be alone. They have to have a sidekick. They have to have a sidekick. And that's just what you were. You were just her sidekick until she decided, you know what, your life looks nice and it looks comfortable, and you know what, I'll take it. And that's exactly what she did. But she was lame and she was real dusty for that. And, you know, I hope you moved on. I hope you didn't dwell on it for too long. Because one thing you can think about when a man leaves you in that way is, like, it really is true. They say, you know, you lose them how you get them. That applies exclusively to that. You know, if he was dealing with someone when you got with him, you know, it's a hard place to be in, because you already know what you're dealing with. You know, you already know what you're dealing with. He outside. He was outside. So unless you plan on staying on top of your game and just, like, you know, doing the most to make sure he stays within the perimeters, then you always gonna be looking over your shoulders. Or you won't, because you'll be busy doing your own thing. You're smart. If you're smart. So yeah, that was that story. Like I said, girl, you ain't lose nothing. He wasn't nothing in the first place. And then for 2 years, you taking him for sloppy seconds? Like, for 2 years, you on some, like, I gotta go my way. Like, who, as a person, like, what, people that do that, like, side people. Why? Like, you don't think that, like, you are worth more than that? You know, like, and I don't know how they twist that, you know, the minds up to think that the other person is in the way when it's literally their action. Just leave them. End it. The other person will be a non-factor if they take accountability and are honest about where they want to be. But they're not being honest about where they want to be to you, the other person, you know. And it's like, you gotta wake up and see that. It's you gotta be in a real bad place, a low place to not see that. And honestly, as a human being, not even just, you know, a woman, as a human being, we've all been there. We have all not been our best selves at time and have taken way less than our worth, you know. But when you realize it, you have to take accountability and say, okay, I fucked up, but this ain't me. I'm gonna get my shit together and I'm gonna climb back up. You gotta be, that's what the humbleness is being able to admit when you fucked up and you're lower than you intended to be, and you gotta climb back up. And that's where you begin. Only then. Denial, you'll keep going in circles. You have to admit and take accountability. All right, next story. All right, so the next story is, he proposed to me and his girlfriend on the same day, 6 hours apart. Okay, Yes, like I said, we doing drama today. These messy ass men doing the most. It ain't shit. Yeah, so we having fun. Okay, so let's get into it. All right, shout out to the person that sent this story. He proposed to me and his girlfriend on the same day, 6 hours apart. I see that note that you left. And you funny girl. You funny girl. All right, so here we go. If you are planning to propose to two women on the same day, do not take both of them to the same jeweler. That is the lesson. That is the thing that unraveled 3 years of a very convincing double life on a Tuesday afternoon. So, my name is Nessa. I was proposed to on a Sunday in April at a restaurant where Marcus had arranged for the waiter to bring the ring out with dessert. It was beautiful. I said yes before he finished the question, and we called our families that night. I cried twice. It was by any measure one of the biggest evenings of my life. But 6 hours earlier, he had proposed to a woman named Diane at a park by a lake. She had also said yes and had also cried. The rings were identical. He bought them from the same jeweler 2 weeks apart. And the jeweler remembered. So Marcus and I have been together for 3 years. We met at a work conference. He was a software consultant and I was up in project management. And we ended up in the same roundtable discussion and then the same bar afterward. He was attentive and self-deprecating and genuinely funny, which is rare than people think. He traveled frequently for work, London to Edinburgh, sometimes further. This felt entirely plausible given his field, and I had never had a reason to question it. This felt entirely plausible, and given his field, I never had reason to question it. He was consistent, and he remembered things, and he was never defensive or evasive when I asked about his work schedule. He just explained it calmly and then moved on. So looking back, I spent a great deal of time looking back. The thing I find most remarkable is not the dishonesty, it's the administrative competence. Running two relationships simultaneously without either woman sensing anything for 3 years is not easy. It requires a kind of meticulous, disciplined organization that I now think was one of the things that made him seem reliable. Because he was reliable, just not in any way that served me. So Diane found out first, not through intuition, through a Saturday morning errand. She was passing the jeweler where Marcus had bought her ring and went in to ask about resizing it slightly. The jeweler, a woman in her 60s who had worked there for 30 years and remembered her customers, looked at the ring and said, "Oh, what a coincidence. A gentleman brought that same ring for someone else just recently." Diane assumed it was a coincidence. She said as much. The jeweler, who was either acutely perceptive or simply making conversation, mentioned that the man had been in twice 2 weeks apart, both times purchasing the identical ring she described to him. Diane recognized the description. She asked several questions. The jeweler, who was now clearly aware that something was wrong, was just answering the questions also, but she was just answering them regularly, but she could figure wait a minute, because as she's answering them, she's like, oh, is she a woman? She know what the fuck is going on. So Diane went home and began the kind of investigation that a person conducts when they are hoping to disprove something. She wasn't hoping to disprove it for long. She found me through our mutual professional network. Marcus had mentioned my name in a context she could now search for, and she sent me a message on a Wednesday evening that I read that Thursday morning that changed my life in approximately 8 words. It said, "I think we have the same fiance." This is words you never want to hear, right? I think we have the same fiance. Diane and I met for coffee before we confronted him. This was her suggestion, and it was the right one. Yeah, like just clear the air first. We spent 2 hours establishing what we each knew. The geography of his deception became clear. He had kept us in different cities, different social circles, different schedules. He told each of us that his work required him to be away at intervals that, when mapped against each other, accounted for almost every absent we each experienced. It sounded like he probably had like his work, like his legit, executive assistant or something, his scheduling assistant, like helping him out with this. I mean, because dang, she probably set up his whole schedule for the or something. All right, boom. So we confronted him together. This was my suggestion. I wanted him to face both of us at the same time. Though I thought it was the most honest possible version of a moment he had been carefully preventing for 3 years. For 3 years, he went pale when he opened the door and found us both standing there. He didn't speak for several seconds. Then he said, "I can explain this." Diane said, "I've driven 2.5 hours. You have 10 minutes. His explanation took 4 minutes. It was inadequate, and we left. Diane and I are friends now, not close friends. We didn't choose each other, and our personalities are quite different, but there's a particular understanding between us that doesn't require a great deal of maintenance. Like, they done been through some shit together. We check in occasionally. She came to my birthday last year. It is genuinely one of the stranger and better things to come out of the whole experience. Marcus is engaged again, I'm told, to someone new. I heard this from a mutual contact, and I noted it with the distant, mild interest you feel about news that once would have mattered enormously to you and just doesn't. I hope she went to the jeweler herself, and I hope she picked the ring." And that's funny. So, wow. I hope they both kept their rings. You know what I mean? I mean, legally, you don't have to. You could give it back. You're supposed to if they want it back. But also, it's like pain and suffering, motherfucker. Shit. So, yeah, I hope they both kept them damn rings. And he got them the same ring, and they were very different personalities, whatever. But, I did another story time, one of my first story times on this channel, which, by the way, is relatively new. I'm just starting out my story times and stuff like that. But one of my first stories was about something like this: someone finding out that their husband had a whole nother life, and he had a kid and everything. Like, it was crazy. And they had managed these very meticulous schedules that made everything work out for work. So it made sense. If you have an office in another state, they might have another family there too. It's crazy. Like, that is just crazy, the things that people do. Let me know what you think in the comments, y'all. Let me know what y'all think about these two stories. And I'm curious, like, have there ever been... Probably not, because it's different. I was gonna say, have there ever been women busted with like secret families? But it's hard for a woman to have a whole secret family because, women happen to, take up the majority of the responsibilities of a household and family. So you can't really do that. But, having another man and everything in a whole nother state. Share some stories like that, where the ladies are, doing the dirt. I'm curious to know, are we outside too? Yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed the stories. Leave me some comments, like the video, and I see you on the next tangent. Peace.